Okay, so you're in the betting ring, you're working with your dad, you're thoroughly enjoying it, but you've got another talent, which is football.
Yeah, yeah.
So Paul's gone off to play for Newcastle United, which I imagine was a big thrill. So tell us a bit about that.
Well, I probably owe all of my football to my dad and my uncle David. I was playing because I lived out in the countryside with my mum. I ended up going to school in Ponteeland, which was not a powerhouse for soccer, more so for rugby or maybe cricket. Um, so I remember playing for South Northumberland one day. So I would have been, I think I was like 12, playing for South Northumberland against Newcastle boys. And it was like playing against grown men. I mean, they absolutely annihilated us. And my uncle David was there with my dad. And the very next day, they took me to Montague Boys Club, which, it's not in a city, but it's right in Newcastle. And Dick Almond, who was the head of the club, gave me a chance to go down there. So I was on the bench to start off with. Half the lads on the team, if not more, played for Newcastle boys that absolutely battered us. And I loved it because I love football. I love playing football, and they were better than me. And I got stuck into it and really enjoyed it. And then probably the number one thing that changed my life was Jimmy Carter, who was president of the United States, came over to Newcastle in 1978, I think it was. And because he's a Democrat, I don't know the politics of things, but they sent him up to Newcastle. And the very first thing out of his mouth was, "Away the lads." So everybody up north loved him. The fact that the president of the United States was visiting Newcastle. So Newcastle and Atlanta became twin cities. I'll make this quick. It became twin cities. I ended up going over with my boys club team on a friendship force in 1979. So I'd never been in an airport, let alone go to a foreign country. We played 5 games over there. They were shocking, they were terrible. But I had such a good time, and they were so enthusiastic, and stayed with the family. So when I came back, I mean, some of the players on that trip were John Carver, was on my team, who managed Newcastle, assistant manager of Scotland now. Derek Bell played for Newcastle. So we had some really good players. Most of the lads on the team were on schoolboy forms with Newcastle. I wasn't. But when I came back, I just associated this fantastic time with football, and I wanted to do more and get better. And so when these lads started getting released, schoolboy forms around 15 or 16, I actually signed for Newcastle. So I played for the juniors, which is up to under 19, and great experience. Colin Suggett and Willie McFall were the managers at the time, and they really helped me. Got to play with some really good football players. And then 18 came along, got released technically, but because they had under 19s, reserves and first team, they didn't have very many older lads to look after some of the younger lads playing in the under 19. So that was Paul Gascoigne and some of the other, younger lads in the team. So they had me sign amateur forms, and in doing so, they would try and help me go to America. So I could not have asked for anything better, because I was never good enough to be a professional footballer. I was a good player and I had a heart of a lion and would tackle and try and get a goal and here there, but ultimately my best opportunity was to go to America and get a college education, play football, and I couldn't have asked for anything better.
Okay, before we follow you over to America, Paul Gascoigne just rolled off the tongue there. I
Yeah.
mean, did you know him very well?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he obviously wasn't as much of a character then. I mean, he was still a young lad. But I'm not trying to be big head. I mean, Paul Gascoigne's Paul Gascoigne. I was nothing compared to him. But as you get older, and obviously I've been involved in football in America, I look at some of the things that he did when I played for Newcastle that to me are just amazing. I remember a quick story. We were playing against, I think it was Barnsley, in a Northern Intermediate Cup, and it was a big game. I know it might not sound much, but it was a big game for us. And he broke through from midfield. So you have to imagine he's at least, I think he might have been 15 going on 16. So he's probably the youngest player on the field. And I wasn't very far away from him. And he tried to chip the goalkeeper from 40 yards. It was 0-0 at the time. And the goalkeeper caught the ball. So I look back as I got older and try and teach these people. So if that had been me, I would have ran through, slipped it past the goalkeeper, or tried to go around the goalkeeper. Either way, if you fail, you're fine. But to chip the goalkeeper and not score and have the goalkeeper catch it, I mean, I would have dug a hole and never come out. And he shrugged his shoulders. We won 6-0 and he scored 2. So it's not a surprise to me that he went on to do so well. I played football with Neil MacDonald as well. And Neil MacDonald was a proper footballer. But had the confidence, but somebody like Paul Gascoigne, now that I look back at it and see that they just absolutely the craziest amount of confidence in his own ability. So I'm obviously not surprised that he went on to do all of the fantastic things he did. And it was obviously a pleasure for me to say that I played football with him, but I mean, he was just on a different planet compared to people like me.
Well, you say that, but unless I've got my facts wrong, you were national champion twice. This is America.
Yeah.
All-American champ 3 times, and twice All-American academic champ. So you were pretty good.
Yeah, well, I will say, I mean, obviously it was back in the 80s, but the college that I went to really had a major emphasis on football. So, you know, we had English lads there, Jamaican internationals, Trinidadian internationals. My roommate, my second year, was from Norway. He had been at Man United for 2 months. So it was a very, very good standard at the top level. Overall, it wasn't anything like England, but at the top level, it was a very good standard. It was easily equivalent at the top to reserve team football that I'd grown up in. And then it's just continued to obviously grow and blossom over in the United States. But I enjoyed, obviously the football wasn't all year round, but I enjoyed the football. And I didn't, even though I was an okay student in school, I didn't exactly enjoy school. It's not like I got up in the morning, I can't wait to go and learn and what have you. But college was different. You could express your opinion a little bit more. It was a wide range. It was a liberal arts school, so it was a wide range. I'd do business, do anatomy and physiology, but you would still do psychology and whatever. And I really, really enjoyed it and benefited greatly from doing that. So, and I would have missed out on that if I'd signed a 1-year pro with Newcastle, which I'm convinced I probably could have, but I'm convinced I would have lasted a year. If I'd lasted a year, the fact that I put pen to paper, I would not have been able to go over there on a soccer scholarship.
So what did you do when you finished your college?
So I got offered the chance to coach at the school, but I was 23 when I graduated. It's a 4-year degree, and I went over there when I was 19. I didn't particularly want to get involved in the coaching side, even though I'd been involved in coaching. Most of the lads that I would have been coaching were lads that I'd played with and, you know, gone through college with. So I ended up working for the admissions office, who, when you're at a private school or what have you, they're trying to recruit students, and they had never been up to New England before. So I ended up being responsible for New England and did that for 2 years. They allowed me to move up there, and then I did another 5 years. So great. I mean, I look back, I worked my arse off, but I look back at it and I gave back to the school. I got the opportunity to move to New Hampshire, which is where I started Seacoast United, obviously. Molly came up in 91, and yeah, so I feel very fortunate the way things worked out, you know, because soccer back in 1988 when I graduated, there was no MLS. There was no real opportunity to keep playing. I wasn't going to come back to England, and I would not have come back to England and been able to walk into a first team anywhere. So I made the decision that ultimately has stood me in good stead.
I was going to ask, you know, did you sort of ever, after doing so well in America, ever regret not coming back playing with a top flight team? Don't you think you could have sort of first division or second division or something like that would have been
Yeah, I mean, the best I ever thought I was as a footballer was going into my second year. So we'd won the national championship my freshman year, I went into my second year knowing that I was going to be playing centre half, which was my best position, even though I'm only 6 feet tall. So that was probably the best I'd ever been, because I trained, I was doing camps all summer, so I was constantly around the football, which I'd never been at Newcastle because I was still at school and I only went in on holidays and what have you. But no, I mean, when I went over at 14, I mean, I'd never been away from home, never been in a foreign country like that. And I loved it. And I liked, American people are the most hospitable people you could meet. And I had so many good experiences over there. So I knew I wanted to give it a go and see if I could potentially stay and get a job and get my visa. And it's worked out that way.
Okay, so you founded SUSC, Seacoast United Soccer Club,
Yeah.
in 1992.
Yeah.
Still quite young then. You know, tell us a bit about that, and how did that sort of come about?
So New Hampshire has the same 4 seasons that you have in the UK, only we're guaranteed a dodgy winter and guaranteed a good summer. So those are the 2 main differences compared to the English weather. So I started a club with another football person in America who's done very well. He just won the Division 1 National Championship, Mike Noonan with Clemson, this past year. So I wanted to give back. I knew this was pretty much where I wanted to be and live, and hopefully bring up a family. So I had started it again, just 2 boys teams. One of the teams I brought over to Newcastle in 1995. It was all just really for shits and giggles. I mean, nothing. I never thought for 1 second I was going to go full time. And then at the beginning of 96, I had an opportunity to change. Do I want to do this? I was in a technology company and what have you. And I just thought, I wonder what would happen if I would give it a go. Because soccer was popular, but it wasn't popular. Nobody played during the winter because the weather was so bad. So I took a chance and went full time. And I think, I've always been a friendly person. I'd like to think I'm a gentleman. So I had, people that would give me advice on how I could potentially grow it. And we built an indoor soccer facility in 1997, which, if you want to play football, I mean, I would have been done for child abuse if we had kids playing in December and January in New Hampshire. So the indoor soccer facility was a huge catalyst for anything that I could do. And my colleague, Ian Burgess, who's from Barrow, played at West Virginia Wesleyan, came up to work with me, as did his brother David a year or 2 later. And we just believed in it and had a go, and it's been fantastic ever since.
Okay, and just finally for this part, 3 Step Sports covers 43 states. Give us a quick rundown on that.
So 3 Step, this is about 3 years ago. So obviously COVID happened, which nobody knew what was going to happen. I'd actually, believe it or not, I was at Cheltenham for the festival and got the last flight out of England to America. And I remember there was people wearing masks on the plane. I was like, I'm not wearing a mask. I still couldn't really quite believe it. But we'd got through the Cheltenham Festival, and then I got back, and then everything was shut down. So we had been talking to a company called 3 Step, who were involved in multiple sports: volleyball, basketball, American football, field hockey, baseball. And they were interested in, going into soccer in the United States. And we ended up being their first group that they took on board. So now, even though Seacoast United is obviously my nearest and dearest to my heart, we oversee all of the soccer that we have now in the United States, which includes leagues, events, other clubs. Obviously my relationship with Nike Soccer, and so it's been a fascinating 2.5 years, and we've done very well. The club itself, Seacoast United, just to give you an idea, we're boys and girls across New Hampshire, Maine, and Massachusetts. We have about 4,000 players, and I think probably the biggest difference to over here. Obviously, we're not a professional club. We're not Newcastle United. But probably the biggest difference is we try to look after everybody. So if you're top level, you can play in the academy against Red Bull, LA Galaxy, the whole works. And then if you're down at this level, we find a spot for you.